For context, I turned 55 a few months ago and have been with my partner Rob, 57 male, for nearly 11 years. I have two children, my daughter Cindy, 33, female, and my son Jeff, 30, male, from a previous marriage. I haven't contacted them for almost a decade, until recently. I'll get into the details later, but ever since my kids cut me out of their lives, I've been trying to get over it and build a new life with Rob. At times, I felt like I could never be happy again. But after ages, I finally felt like I'd come to terms with everything and was at a place of peace in my life when everything came toppling down because of one person, my ex-husband, Ned. I met Ned, 57, male, way back in the day. Our fathers were colleagues and we'd met each other as kids at office parties and get-togethers. However, we never spoke. He began taking an interest in me when we were teenagers. He'd flirt with me whenever we met and slowly began pursuing me. He'd even visit at school and take me out. I must admit, I did find all this attention very flattering, and I liked the fact that he was trying so hard to get my attention. Initially, everything was great. He was a perfect gentleman and treated me so well. He was one of those manly men who love the idea of providing. He was the one who always initiated dates and planned all activities. He usually made all the decisions, from small things like where we'd go out to dinner to bigger decisions as to whether I should pursue college or not. I didn't mind it too much. I liked having this strong personality who took care of things and usually just followed what he said, although sometimes I would feel a little annoyed when my opinions weren't taken into consideration. I was a bit of a people pleaser and didn't like confronting people about things, so I tried my best not to get offended and just roll with the punches. So far, Ned was making good calls, and I wasn't being negatively affected by them, so I just let him handle everything. After I graduated high school, I decided to start working. I wasn't all that interested in pursuing further education. I wanted to get a job, learn some new skills, and most importantly, earn some money. I was not from a well-off family, so being able to work and be financially independent was very important to me. I wanted to help out my parents as well as have my own income so that I wasn't dependent on anyone else. Ned didn't want me to go to college either. He was pretty possessive and told me that he didn't like the idea of me interacting with other men because they only had filth on their minds, and I was too innocent. He was pretty pleased when I told him that I would rather get a job. However, he still tried to reason with me not to work. He said that he wanted to take care of me even though he knew how much being financially independent meant to me. I stood my ground, and even though he wasn't pleased, I got a job at a restaurant as a trainee chef. I loved cooking, and I felt like this would be the best place to hone my skills. A couple of years later, on my 21st birthday, Ned proposed to me, and we got married a few months later. Once we got married, we moved into Ned's house, which he had inherited from his parents. Ned took care of everything. He made sure that I was comfortable and felt safe in the new neighborhood. My pantry was always stocked, and he bought me everything I wanted. I was in bliss. A few months after getting married, he continued to pressure me into leaving my job because he was earning well and we didn't need the extra money. Whenever I refused, he would get angry and tell me that the fact that I was working made it seem like he wasn't able to provide for me. He became even more possessive to the extent that he wouldn't even let me talk to the neighbors or go grocery shopping alone. He agreed to let me work as long as I gave him my paycheck every month so he could handle things. When I was pregnant with my daughter, I was very sick and ended up giving birth early. Cindy was premature and had to spend a month in the NICU. After we got back home, she was still weak and very small. Ned decided that it would be best if I quit my job and looked after Cindy until she was better. I didn't argue because I felt the same way. My baby needed me. By God's grace, Cindy thrived, and by the time she was 2, I decided to rejoin my job. Ned didn't want me to. He somehow persuaded me to stay back for a few more years because he felt that Cindy was too young to be left alone without her mom. I got pregnant again and had Jeff, and when he was a few years old, I tried getting another job, but this time Ned forbade me from even talking about it. He said that I was a mother now and that my kid needed me. There was no need for me to be working when my only job was to look after my child and the house. He said that he felt insulted by the fact that I wanted to work despite him taking such good care of me, and that it was a slap to his face. I didn't realize at the time that he was emotionally manipulating me and guilt-tripping me into staying back. I always knew that he didn't like the idea of me working, but the fact that he was using my daughter as leverage was not good. I began to slowly lose my patience with him, but kept quiet because I didn't want to fight. Ned had this way of making me feel bad for everything, even when things weren't in my control. One day, I lost my temper when he told me that I was a bad mother because I couldn't stop working, and that's why Cindy was born premature and with so many complications. I was devastated. It led to a massive fight, which was too overwhelming for me, and I ended up staying with my mother for a few days. Ned apologized and somehow managed to convince me to come home. That's just how he was. We'd get into terrible fights, and at the end, he'd go back to being loving and sensitive, begging for my forgiveness, and like an idiot, I'd go back to him. As the years passed, things just went from bad to worse. Ned began controlling every aspect of my life. He forbade me from ever bringing up work, and I had to do my daily duties, which included looking after the children and doing all the household chores. Even when I was done with my duties, I couldn't visit my friends, go out, or even visit my parents without permission. He didn't let me get a driver's license and didn't let me use the bus, so I was dependent on him to take me everywhere. He told me what to wear, and if he didn't like what I wore, he'd start arguing. I wasn't allowed to complain or even voice my opinion. He made all the decisions, even those that concerned the kids. I didn't think that was fair because they were my kids too. They weren't happy with the school they were in. They were being bullied and begged me to talk to Ned about changing schools, but his word was final. He didn't care what anyone else said. As the kids grew, I devoted all my time to them, ensuring that they had everything they needed. They were my main priority. Ned had, in a way, domesticated me. All the curiosity and ambition that I had when I was younger had completely disappeared. I did everything to please him, even if I didn't want him to. And my entire personality had changed. I had become a shell of my former self, kind of like a puppet, dancing to the tune of Ned's demands. He loved how I was, weak, docile, and obedient. He loved showing me off to everyone, saying that I was a perfect wife and boasting about how he was managing everything and providing for his family like a real dependable man. It was as if he had a complex. He felt as if he would be less of a man if I had a say in how things ran. As if my having any sort of opinion affected his dominating masculinity. By the time Cindy was in college, I had had enough. Whatever love I had for this man was long gone, and everything came crashing down one night. I had started making different sauces, tomato, pesto, etc., at home, and whenever people came over, they always complimented my food and asked for the recipe. I was very secretive about it and offered to make it for them instead. A bunch of people told me that I should sell it because it was that good. I didn't think that anybody would buy it, but I soon started getting a few orders from some of our friends. Ned hated this. He said that it was a waste of time and I should stop it because I was embarrassing him. I told him that I had listened to him all my life, but I really felt like my sauce business had potential. A huge fight broke out, and I had an order the next day, and Ned got so mad that he smashed all the jars of sauce on the floor and told me that if I was ever going to disobey him again, I would regret it. This was the last straw. I packed my stuff and left. I was scared for my life. This time I wasn't going to let him sweet-talk me into coming back. I was not going to let him control me anymore. He did everything he could to win me back, even started manipulating me again, saying that he was going to harm himself. But I knew that if I agreed, he could harm me. I made up my mind to divorce him. He was furious and made a huge scene, but I stood my ground. The divorce was a long and ugly process, but after it was finalized, I felt lighter than a feather. The kids were much older now and busy with their own lives, so they didn't ask too many questions about the divorce. I didn't want to ruin their father's image and tell them the truth, so I just told them that we fell out of love. I didn't want them to get involved, and surprisingly, Ned was on the same page as me. After the divorce, I stayed at my parents' house and started working harder than ever. This was the first time in over 20 years that I was finally able to do what I wanted without having to worry about anything else or any restrictions. I went back to work at a restaurant and my sauce business took off. My kids helped me with everything. They made a website where I could sell them, and I did so much advertising for it at their colleges. Soon I was getting orders almost every day and had to work part-time to meet the demand. My parents' garage turned into my manufacturing station, and my entire family got involved in the processing of the sauce. I later started making a profit and was able to rent my own apartment. The business kept growing, and within a couple of years, I had to get a separate go-down to start producing the sauces on a large scale. I hired new employees and was now the owner of a very successful brand, and I loved every minute of it. Ned wasn't happy. Even after separating for more than 2 years, he still kept pestering me to get back with him. He kept promising that he had changed and that he would treat me well, but it was just the same old repeated lies. I realized that he was stopping me from reaching my full potential. Now that I was without him, I was truly happy. I was now a successful entrepreneur. Maybe he was threatened by me all along, and that's why he was suppressing me. It took me a while to get back into dating. I didn't trust people after what happened to me. So I kept to myself most of the time and didn't think that I was going to find love again until I met Rob. It happened very organically. He was one of my customers. He always raved about how much he loved my sauces and ordered them dozens of times. He even helped me get a few bulk orders. We slowly began talking to each other and hanging out, and I didn't think it was anything serious. Love wasn't on my mind at all, but I slowly found myself falling for him. He was the complete opposite of Ned. Instead of shutting down my ideas, he gave me more and encouraged me to branch out and expand my business. He allowed me to express myself and listen to my opinions. He made me feel heard and valued what I said. This was such a refreshing change. He was my friend and a massive support, and over the course of a year, we fell in love. I don't know how else to put it. I loved him, and I felt like he understood me on a different level. I had been so underappreciated my whole life that I didn't know what true love felt like until I met Rob. Even my kids adored him. And that was more than I could ask for. I began moving on with my life. A few months before everything went down the drain, I started noticing that my children were behaving a little oddly. They stopped calling and texting me and seemed very cold and rude. Over the next month, I tried to get in contact with my kids, but there was something wrong. It was as if they were mad at me and didn't want to tell me why. Meanwhile, my business was booming, and I decided to throw a success party for it. I invited all my friends, family, and employees and colleagues. It was a huge deal for me. My kids made excuses, but after a lot of persuasion, I convinced them to come. Rob was on a business trip and couldn't come, so I needed them to be there. The party was amazing. So many people showed up to celebrate with me. This was the first time that I had done something to commemorate my business. If I had been told even 5 years ago that my life would change so drastically for the better, I wouldn't have believed it. In a way, this party was celebrating my freedom and how much I could achieve. My kids still behaved in the same cold manner. Instead of talking to me, they were huddled in a corner, being indifferent. It was clear that I had hurt them, but I had no idea how. Once everyone had arrived, I decided to give a speech about how grateful I was for everyone, especially my kids and Rob, without whom none of this would be possible. While everyone cheered, my kids stormed out and went to the backyard. They looked furious. Now, I was very confused and followed them only to get yelled at. My son looked like he was about to cry. When I tried asking what was wrong, Cindy said that I didn't deserve this success because I was a liar, a cheater, and a leech who sucked money and joy out of people. She said that she had no idea that I was such a vile human. They always idolized me and supported me, but someone had recently told them the truth about how two-faced I was, and now they were disgusted by me. Everybody was shocked and just stood in silence while my children berated me and accused me of things I didn't do. I had no idea where they were getting this false information, but it was clear that they trusted whoever told them this. I pleaded with them to find out who said this, but they refused to tell me. It was all very nasty. The party was ruined. My kids hated me and thought I was a leech, and I had no idea why. My parents tried to control the situation, but my kids then told me that they didn't know I was capable of being so foul and wanted nothing to do with me. They didn't want to associate with people like me and felt that it would be better if they stayed away. I was heartbroken and didn't know what to do. My own kids, who were always my biggest supporters, now hate me, and I don't know why. Over the next couple of weeks, I tried to contact them, but they cut me out of their lives completely. Nothing I did or said made any difference. At one point, I even visited them and tried to explain, but they called security on me and made me leave. I was broken. I went into a depression. I felt like Ned was behind this and asked him, but he denied everything and said that I was being delusional. To make matters worse, Rob and I separated. He said that his ex-wife was trying to get back together and he didn't want to be with someone as emotionally volatile as I was when he was already dealing with so much. It was as if everything that I had worked so hard for was crumbling. No kids, no partner, nothing. The only thing I had was my company, so I decided to put my all into it. I don't know how my life had gone down this terrible trajectory, but I had been through worse and come out of it before, and I was going to do it again. Within a couple of months, I managed to upscale my production, and soon I got offers for better opportunities in a neighboring state. I had nothing to lose, so I decided to take the plunge and move. This would be like a new start for me in a new city, and it would also greatly improve my business. With the help of my parents, I moved states and immersed myself in work. For over a year, my kids didn't contact me, but I didn't give up. I tried my best to speak to them, but they blocked me from everywhere. Meanwhile, after a few months, Rob came to visit me. He said that he was stupid to even think of leaving me when I needed him the most, and that he still loved me and couldn't get me out of his head. He apologized and said that he loved me and only me, and he was always going to have my back. I got back with him, and we started living together. Maybe it was because I just felt so alone and depressed. Having him there made me feel better. And that's how it's been for the past 9 years. Rob and I are still together. We haven't gotten married yet because I just feel like there is no need for it. Rob has been an amazing partner, and apart from that one hiccup, everything has been smooth. My company has been doing great. However, I had absolutely no contact with my kids until last week, when my whole world came crumbling down. Cindy called me. She sounded devastated and told me that Ned had passed away and had told them everything. My heart dropped. She said that 9 years ago, someone had told both Jeff and her that I was a cheater and a gold digger. They said that I had cheated on Ned multiple times during our marriage and was unfaithful to him from the very beginning. I was also only with him for the money, and during the divorce, I took all his money so that I could invest it in my company. They were shown false documents and everything. They had also said that I had no ethics or morals. I only cared about money and how people could benefit me. I was a vicious lady who sucked the life out of people and left them with nothing, and I was a master manipulator who pretended to be harmless to everyone. This person had warned them that I was going to ruin them and told them to stay away from me for good. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. When I asked her who told her all this, what she said next made me collapse on the floor. She said it was Rob. A million things were running through my mind, but nothing made any logical sense. I thought this must be some kind of sick joke, but Cindy continued. She said that Rob was the one who had met up with them, told them everything, and even showed them these fake documents. He claimed that I had told him about everything in confidence, and he couldn't deal with the fact that I was such a monster and was planning on breaking up with me. But he couldn't do so without showing my true colors to my kids. They believed everything he said, and that's why they started acting so odd around me. Then there was the whole fiasco at the party, after which they went out of contact with me. They asked Ned if all of these accusations were true, and after initially denying them because he didn't want to ruin my image, he finally accepted that I was a promiscuous leech. This confirmed my kids' worst fears, and they vowed to have nothing to do with me. For almost a decade, they thought I was a monster. But last week, when Ned, who was ill for a while, got worse, he told them everything. He said that Rob was his friend and he had paid him to pretend to fall in love with me, win my trust, and then absolutely ruin my life by lying to my kids and separating us. He admitted that all the documents were fake and that I had never done anything I was accused of. After Rob did the job, Ned paid him, and he broke up with me. That was the plan. On his deathbed, he confessed that he wanted to get back at me after the divorce because, despite taking such good care of me throughout our marriage, he still wasn't enough. And he just wanted me to get a taste of my own medicine and orchestrated this whole plan. I hung up. I felt as if someone had shot me. Never in my wildest dreams did I think this would happen. The worst part is that Rob and I were still together, and he had never once mentioned any of this to me in the past 9 years. For 9 years, I had been living with the man who backstabbed me and ruined my life. I didn't know what else to do, so I grabbed my stuff, flew to my mom's place, and told her everything. It's been 2 days now, and I still can't come to terms with this. Rob has tried calling, but I've blocked him. I'm meeting with my kids tomorrow, and I don't know what to expect. How do I deal with this? I am so lost. Update 1. Wow, I didn't think my story would reach so many. I don't really know how this app works and just wanted to vent. But ever since I initially posted, I've been getting tons and tons of comments and messages. I still have to go through them all, but I appreciate all your support. I'm sorry that I have not been able to update you sooner because I know that everyone wants to know how my meeting went with the kids. It's been over a month and my life has been such a mess dealing with everything that I just didn't have the time to write an update. But I do have one. Here goes. Even though it's been a month, I'm still not over what happened to me. It feels surreal, and sometimes I think that it's just a nightmare and I'm going to wake up any minute and go back to my old life. My mother has been my biggest support and help during this time. So yeah, I met with my kids after not being in contact with them for a whole decade. To say that it was emotional would be an understatement. They hugged me and we just sat there in complete silence for a long time, soaking things up. They told me that they were sorry for everything and how badly they treated me for all these years. They said that they shouldn't have believed Rob so easily and trusted me instead, and that they wished they could go back in time and change things. They genuinely seemed so sorry, and my heart broke. I know how easily you can be manipulated by people you love. I have been through that my whole life. I don't blame my kids. But it still stings that they trusted Rob and Ned over me without even listening to my side of the story. I also got more details about Ned, and he was battling cancer for over 2 years and finally succumbed to it. The only reason he told them the truth about everything was because he wanted to die with a clear conscience. Ned was my husband for 20 years, but I do not feel sad about his passing. This man had not only ruined my life when we were together, but also after I left him. And then, just as he was dying, he told the truth. He's a coward. He died instead of facing the consequences of his actions when he was alive. So call me cold-hearted, but I feel no remorse for him. He also ruined my relationship with my kids, and I could never forgive him for that. He didn't have the guts to face me, even in death. That just proves what a coward he was. I am just filled with such anger that I don't know what to do. I hate the fact that I can't have one last word with him and let him know how pathetic and ruthless he was, and it's eating me from the inside. Coming to Rob, all I feel is betrayal and pain. My kids had no idea that Rob and I were still together, and when he met them, he told them that I was a dangerous woman and that he was going to leave me, which he did for a few months. But then, why did he come back and stay with me for so long? The deal he made with Ned was that after he got paid, he was going to leave me. I have so many questions, but I'm scared to get any answers because I'm afraid that I just can't take it anymore. Rob has been trying to contact me. I know he's in the same city and has come to my mom's house almost every day to speak to me, but I just can't even look at him. I just want him to disappear and leave me alone, but at the same time, I need an explanation. How could he have been in love with me when he had betrayed me like this? I'm just so frustrated. But I've finally agreed to meet him in a few days. I'll let you know how it goes. Update 2. So, I met him. It was awful. He looked terrible, as if he hadn't slept in a while. The minute I saw him, I collapsed. Everything just hit me. The man I was in love with had betrayed me more than anyone else. He fell to my feet and apologized. He said that he only did what Ned asked him to do for the money. He didn't plan on anything else. He had just gotten divorced from his ex-wife and had lost everything, and Ned was willing to pay him a good amount. But he didn't expect to fall in love with me. He said that he immediately knew what he was doing was wrong, and he saw that I was a genuine, nice person. He tried to call it off, but Ned threatened to harm him if he told me the truth, and Ned was a dangerous man. So he kept quiet and did his job. After doing everything, he left me but fell in love with me and hated himself for ruining my life. And when he came to know that I had moved states and my children were not in contact with me, he decided to come back into my life and restart our relationship in secret. Neither my kids nor Ned had any idea that we were together. He said that during the past 9 years, there were many times when he wished that he could just come clean and tell me the whole truth. But he knew that I would leave him if he did so. He felt so guilty, but he was so in love with me that he didn't tell me, and he regrets it. He then proceeded to beg me to forgive him and take him back. Now that I knew the truth, he said that we could reconcile and start again on a clean slate. I can't believe he dared to even mention this after everything. I slammed the door on his face. I don't think I'm ever going to be capable of loving again because whoever I loved ended up hurting and destroying me. Maybe one day I'll be able to give Rob a piece of my mind, but for now, all I want is peace. I just want to forget that this ever happened. Life just feels so unfair, and I'm going to therapy, but even that doesn't seem to help. I pray that things get better, but for now, I just feel lost. Update 3. Hey guys, it's been 3 months. Thank you for all your encouraging words. They make me feel better and I do appreciate them. I'm doing as well as I can. Over the past few months, I have just been trying to heal. Rob has tried many times to meet me, but I don't want anything to do with him. I told him that if he tried contacting me again, he'd be getting a restraining order, and that seemed to set him straight. I haven't heard from him in months. I moved back home and got rid of all his stuff, and I'm now primarily focusing on work. It's the one place where I feel like I have some control over my life. The only good thing that has come out of this is that I have reconciled with my kids. It still feels a little awkward, and I know that they feel terrible, but they are trying, and I appreciate it. Also, I'm a grandma. I have 4 little grandkids, and they lighten up my world. They are one of the few sources of joy in my life. The fact that Rob and Ned kept me away from my grandkids for this long makes me hate them even more. Therapy is helping, but I know there is a long road ahead and it isn't going to be easy. I'm going to try my hardest to make the most of this. God has given me a new chance to be there for my family, and I'm not going to waste it. I've decided to take everything one step at a time. Stay tuned for more stories from our girl relationships.